Welcome on in together, round gang. It's time for some more Total War Medieval 3 news, where for the first time we get to see kind of a first look at campaign, map, and civic development as they've got a rally point, kind of their first live stream on the main Total War channel in a very long time. So what I'm going to do is we'll watch through here, and we'll skip through to the important bits where they're talking about gameplay itself, and we will kind of analyze and discuss. Let's get to it.
Hello, and welcome to our final stream of the year. And what a final stream to go out on. Thank you very much, everyone, for waiting. As we honestly, we are setting up something we have never ever done before. It is slightly terrifying. There's going to be a few tech issues, we imagine.
Oh, I'm sure.
We've just resolved one of them. But hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream. This is, as I say, our last stream of the year, but really our first stream of the new era of Total War. And it is also, to all of you watching on the main channel, our first stream on the main Total War YouTube channel in, I think, over 2 years.
Wow.
So, hello everyone, welcome back. For those of you unaware, we have a second channel called Total War Live, where we stream pretty much every week, sometimes a couple of times a week. So I want to just flash something up on the screen to kind of reinforce what this series is, what is building Medieval 3.
Yeah, I think one thing that, yes, we're not necessarily playing through the game, but I think we're going to show the actual game. I think one of the cool things...
We get to see some actual game, and this is good, seeing the points too, the discussion with the community, so that they're planning on building this alongside the Medieval 2 and just the historical community in general, which is awesome. And that does mean, as the final point says, that the vision of what the game is going to evolve with their feedback, which, again, is incredible. This is a very good way to develop a game. At least we can only hope, right? Let's continue.
As part of our anniversary, we talked a bit about new engine. Is that at this early stage we actually have a game that is, that we can prototype things in, we can try out things. We've, removed things that we tried out that we felt like didn't work, right? So I think that's the power of the new engine. Both of us, we worked on Three Kingdoms. It's probably fair to say that at this stage in Three Kingdoms, we didn't necessarily have a playable version yet. So this is all great news, essentially, even though what you're going to see is all heavily placeholder. But
It is, and it's part of the candid and open. I'll skip one for now, but it's the hope here is that we can have adult conversations, as adults with our community who all want the game to be great, and we want the game to be great. So being able to talk about mechanics and features in a way where we're kind of meeting each other as peers, I think is a really important part of these kind of conversations. We've touched a little on consistent communication. You guys talking about you've been posting in the forums. There will be stuff in the forums for people to respond to after this stream. So we're going to be asking you guys some key questions around the topics we brought. But I've put that last point in as it's going to evolve over time. This may be the last building Medieval 3 stream we ever do, because people say this isn't a good way for us to have communication.
Yep.
We'd rather it was blogs. We'd rather, we ask the questions, you give the answers, all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So we are very open to exploring how best to be able to do this.
For sure. I mean, we talked about this in our initial blogs, right? That we, where this is the first time for us announcing so early. It's the first time for us to kind of work in this way. So how we communicate, how we show progress, how we show the game, is all up for grabs, really. And we're going to be adjusting and calibrating along the way.
Exactly. And I'm going to ask to very quickly borrow the mouse, am I? I need to switch to a scene that is not on my little stream deck, which is honestly where I spend my whole life. But actually, I think I can maybe do this verbally, because I can remember. We have planned the stream. All right, so the topics we're going to be covering today, right?
Yes.
The map, region breakdown, construction, population, and taxation/wealth.
Yes.
So that is going to be the focus of this stream. You guys will see that the stream is called Building Medieval 3, the map and civic, which is kind of the bundle we gave for these. If people enjoy this and enjoy this format, we will do other streams based on other topics, right? So the point of this isn't for us to go, here's absolutely everything we've developed so far, here's everything we can see. As we work through different stages of the game and different parts, that's when we want to come at that...
Ooh, I hope they have stuff for battles soon. It doesn't sound like they do it this time, but battles are my favorite part of Total War, so let's hope they've got battle footage, or at least battle, screenshots soon.
Opportune moment to the community with, here's what we're working on, help us refine this, or what are your expectations for this area?
And we also want to, we want to kind of riff off of the key topics, right? So if in our forums there's a key topic that everyone's kind of engaging with and they're really curious about that, we want to, be able to support that with content and follow up with, okay, we've seen you talking about this. Look, let us tell you what we're thinking about it, where we are now with that particular topic in mind.
And I saw someone in the chat say it, and it's a good time to mention it up. There was a question. Oh, you didn't mention religion there. We didn't mention 99% of the game in that list, right? So, although I'd argue the campaign map is a pretty big part, but the point being that just because we didn't say something there, that doesn't mean it's not going to be there. The hope for these streams is that as we're working on them, we can come to the community, list out these things. So I think when we see the game, there'll be a bit of
and they're definitely going to have to figure out how to kind of navigate the community jumping at things that aren't there. And that's just part of anything. But this is one of those titles that has been so hyped up in people's minds that they have, as soon as they hear that, they're not going to have religion. No, just wait. They haven't. This has just been announced. We'll have to get more information as things. It's years out, so we'll get the information as things come, and then you can judge them as needed.
religion. Your spots in religion, but that the conversation about religion and the work on religion from a design perspective isn't being done right now. The stuff that we're talking about is where we want that input.
Obviously, I think one way to look at it is that we are trying to build the game from the core skeleton outwards, right?
Yes.
And if you think about, okay, for the campaign, what's the most relevant? Well, how's the space, how's the world broken down into parts? It's obviously a super big element of that gameplay, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that these are the most important features, but they are sort of determining the skeleton of
Absolutely.
Of the game.
And there's also and this is where part of this is going to be discussing about us talking about how we make games, know, and the kind of in the process, and a lot of that is looking at the assessing the how big a thing is, how risky is it, how much of a challenge is it to implement, what do we have, we have to prioritize certain big things earlier rather than others, so that will inform the focus in a particular amount of time. And there's almost like a butterfly effect of features as well in the systems that we implement that then have a knock-on on other things. So there's a certain order to the way that we approach things as we build a Total War game. And we're going to be discussing that and how we're approaching what's next in line because of the preceding items, and how is this shaping, and why are things changing, because actually we've now unlocked something, we're doing this instead, and that has an impact on something we've previously discussed. It's a very dynamic kind of process, an iterative process of how we build Total War.
Absolutely. Well then, should we start off with the map?
Sure.
Yep.
All right. I think we've got a bit of art to throw.
All right, so we've got a kind of placeholder zoomed out map of Spain. All right, so we can see several cities there. More than Medieval 2 for sure. Awesome. Let us continue.
The teaser first.
Yeah. So this is our piece of concept art, early concept art that we kind of showed with the showcase, where we kind of explored tried to really get a sense of a sense of scale that we wanted to achieve with Med-Free.
And maybe a good question to dive into a bit is why this focus on Iberia or quote unquote Spain? Why did we start with that?
It was definitely the starting point was trying to do something that was a little bit different, a bit fresh. In terms of visuals, we're very, medieval theme is dominated by kind of northern Atlantic kind of grey stone castles, mud and grey essentially. And what we wanted to do is take a different skew to begin with and focus on a Mediterranean, something that is very very medieval, but different to everything else that's kind of associated with that.
And then I think the other part is how sort of Iberia is really almost like a microcosm of the medieval world. I was just flying to Sofia the other day with one of our senior designers, and he was reading a book, The Wise King, about Alfonso X, and sort of he kept coming over, oh God, this is so cool, like here's this, here's the peasant revolt happening and whatnot. And I think there's a lot of things that are happening in Iberia throughout those 300 years, where it almost captures all the major tropes, all the major mechanics. Like you have knightly orders vying for power. You have obviously religious, sort of religiously inspired conflict. You have trade between cultures. You have the peasant revolts. You have dynastic important links.
Yep.
Where multiple realms merge.
Yeah.
And then of course you have that, let's say, the ambition of grandeur with Castile ultimately emerging as a great power. So a lot of the, let's say, fantasies and tropes and mechanics you want to capture across the entire map in the end are sort of really nicely represented in that microcosm.
And we were just discussing it just today, the scale as well. It's got a nice kind of sense of scale, large geographical kind of area that we can kind of fill and really use as that initial kind of playground to build up the features and systems.
And I guess, so the last part of this would be, I think it's probably fair to say we have a lot of, let's say, hobbyist experts for various, let's say, medieval areas or eras. We have sort of really passionate people about the Holy Roman Empire, Poland, England, of course.
Yeah.
But with Iberia, it was really clear that, this is actually good, Hungary, good opportunity to really focus our early research in that area, because it was...
Removes any bias that we have within a team.
Removes bias, yes. But it was also a new area really to focus our early research on. So that was a big part as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I will give my little caveat first, and then we're going to press
Yeah,
Go for it.
yes.
So today you are going to see bits of our new engine. The caveat I want to make very right now is all of the 40k fans watching. I do not want you to start guessing at what aspects of Medieval 3 that we're currently developing are or are not shared between
Don't you tell me how to live my life, fellow Josh.
our titles. We are looking today at what Medieval 3 has planned, what we've got, and what's part of that core DNA. But that is the DNA. The body of these titles and the life of them is going to be very different. So please do not jump to any conclusions as I see this thing, so that's going to be in Total Warhammer 40k and vice versa. I will say as well, the purpose of the visuals right now is not to look pretty and to wow everyone. It is to help us prove out the gameplay and to help you understand our goals. So from here, we can have more informed discussions with you about the features, about the mechanics. Is that everything I had to say? I think so. I will also say this is an incredibly suboptimal setup for the developers. I'm so sorry. The issue we had just before we went live is the mouse isn't working very well. So if I have to run off stream and sort out a mouse, that's what's happening.
If you see live being very delicate with the mouse, it's if that mouse goes off screen, that's it.
Yeah.
Josh has to disappear
They're
behind.
looking at a massive TV with it. All right.
Yeah.
Shall we?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay. So this, as it stands, is Total War Medieval 3.
And as Josh mentioned, this is this is we're in pre-production. You've got it says on the screen there, everything's subject to change. This is everything's kind of what we call grey box at this stage.
Yeah.
I mentioned in the post that we made on forums about what we mean by pre-production. Grey box is not necessarily just a grey box, but it's all kind of blockouts. It's a way for us to start building up the game in a way that we can we can test, we can start looking at it as a game rather than just a test bed, but it's all very much blockouts.
It is.
We
There are.
definitely have our artists in the team currently
I was going to
sweating.
say there are artists sweating, there are marketing people sweating.
Oh yeah. But again, that's part of the the joy of doing this. It's we've never done this before. You've never seen a Total War game at this stage of development. So this is not just new for us to show, but also new for you to see.
Exactly.
So I think apologies for trying to reinforce the context of what you're looking at, because this is absolutely an very early build, some elements look visually pleasing even at this stage. For example, we may have some building icons and things like that, but that's only because we try and make the development experience for our developers as pleasant. So we try and make things feel gamey, but it's all absolutely placeholder.
It's an iterative process.
Yeah.
So do you want me to stick the UI on as we scroll in?
Not quite yet. I just wanted to sort of quickly, or very carefully
Let's
rather,
hope the mouse works.
zip around a little, because I think one of the questions we obviously receive a lot is sort of what overall map extent we are.
All right, I'll pause just for a moment. Looks like we do, hopefully have a couple of, hopefully 2 settlements at the very least in these islands. I want to see small little port settlements and fishing villages and things of the like all over the kind of island settlements. That way you have an incentive to go get those. for food for your population, if that's part of it. This looks good though. It's obviously very, very early on, but I'm liking what we're seeing so far.
Thinking, and this is all very early, of course, but I think one of our, let's say, clear goals right now is to absolutely, represent sort of roughly the Attila-sized landmass. Obviously, you couldn't make a medieval 3 without the Levant and parts of Central Europe and Eastern Europe and Northern Africa. So that's all.
And that's confirmation we're getting obviously the Levant, and then parts of Africa. Hopefully we get a little bit more than that. Would love for it to stretch out into further into Russia and into Asia a little bit. Getting access to some of the kind of the medieval Chinese would be awesome. Yes, not exactly what they would call themselves, but just having that stretch all the way over there, while probably not going to be the scope, would be incredible.
Currently, sort of in our plans.
Yep.
So is that all of the green area that's within that
pretty
plan?
much, yeah. And our actual, sort of test bed where we are starting to build our prototypes and our early concepts is, focused on Iberia.
Yeah.
Where, obviously, along the lines of placeholder work, you can probably make out some regional borders here already. These are all to be refined. Don't take them too seriously. We're not obviously happy with how uniform they feel. We also recently talked in our forums around the intended start date of 1140. The current content setup doesn't fully represent that by any means, so there are a lot of changes incoming.
All right, so I'll pause. Yeah, these aren't going to be, so everything you see on the map is likely to change, but you can see these look like little smaller, hopefully little smaller kind of micro settlements, or just little things like fishing villages or mines you have to conquer that are outside of the settlement itself. Very similar to what you see in kind of Roman stuff. The later historical titles. We can only hope.
I mentioned regions. Probably one important thing to talk about when we think of the map is the good old province system.
Yep, the Rome 2 province system.
The old lady in the room, perhaps, where I think it's fair to say we heard people's feedback and the community's thoughts on it. And I think it obviously created some really interesting gameplay situations in some of these early titles, but it's something where we very early, I think, decided to move away from. Instead, move to a single region with its administrative capital, that main settlement, and then rural developments within the borders of the region. But I think one thing we're going to talk about a little bit is that.
Good. So they're going back to the old Rome 2 system, where you've got your one major settlement in the region, and there's all the little smaller settlements to capture, and then just add more utility to that region, which is an incredible system. Hopefully it's not just an exact copy, and it's an upgraded version, which it should be, right? But let's continue.
That there will be lots more stuff going on in that region compared to previous games.
Absolutely. Shall we zoom out a little bit and get the UI on?
Do you want me to hit the button?
Let's see.
Don't tell me the mouse
I lost
isn't working.
control.
You might have to go behind the curtain.
Well, I can
Sorry about that.
at least stick the UI on. Oh, that didn't do it either. We are working with the finest of Bluetooth technology. If you pass me the mouse, if you could just
Sorry,
talk
Josh.
a little bit about how the map size compares to the total.
We talked about the. Oh, there we go. You've got it back.
Oh, perfect.
Nice. Zoom out a little bit more. So we talked about the when we say Attila map, the extents. We're talking about the extents, the geographical extents. But again, this is Warcore. This is a different playing field. So the scale is vastly different to that of Attila, and I think we can see that when we look at the regions in more detail.
Yeah, and I think I like to talk about Napoleon and Empire a lot because I feel like they did some fantastic things on the campaign map. But one thing I think they didn't capture necessarily is the vastness of space, right? And I think it's, especially for a medieval game, if you were a ruler in Iberia, that was like almost its own world, right? And the regions in Italy seemed like a world away, right? So making sure that this vastness of the world is portrayed is really important.
Exactly. We really wanted to avoid kind of almost centimeters between major cities and have that sense.
No, I may have missed it, but look, we can't see all of the UI up here, but we have what looks to be production almost. You got your production, and then this is likely, I don't know, conscription or something of the like. and then all of your kind of UI buttons themselves. So your wars, your diplomacy, I don't know, your finest, economy. This is probably research, and then I couldn't tell you what this is. This could be religion. Really neat. Then maybe like sneaky actions or family tree or something.
Sense of scale to
Really... Mouse back?
Yep.
And I think so. 2 questions I can see from chat that I think are worth pulling out. One is someone asking kind of what amount of the art that you can currently see will make it into the final game.
0.
Nothing.
This is all block out placeholder. It's to help us understand the game, to help you guys understand the game. Yeah. And I really think this is going to be.
And that is really good for everyone to take note of. Nothing here is going to be in the base game. This is all just placeholders. So this is so very early development.
Difficult for us to come to terms with the fact that this is streaming right now, right? We would have never ever shown anything like this, a year ago, right? No. But I think for the community as well, for them to get used to the idea that they're going to see this. This is going to be, it's going to have rough moments. It may crash, right?
Oh yeah.
Because this is a development.
Well, that's pretty stable to be.
You know what? I left it on overnight. Okay. So they're going to see a lot of very very in development stuff, but over the course of this series, as we ask these questions, as we come back to them, as we show that we've implemented the suggestions and the features,
that's the key.
You will see the game be refined.
You'll see it developing. You'll see it stream to stream. You'll see it growing. You'll see progress. This looked nothing like this, months ago. So we're going to be showing you that progress. And as you put it, Josh, exactly that. You will see your feedback present in what we're showing, and we'll point out to it. We'll point it out and make sure that everyone's aware.
And I think earlier we talked about pre-production, about being about the how we're building this game, and a lot of our artists for the campaign map, they're worried about exactly that right now. And so they're not worried about making it pretty. It's sort of, we know how to do this, but how we build this world, at an efficient pace, that's what they're making.
So do we want to, I think we can start to conclude our map section of this. If there's anything else you want to show, just before we go into our first question for the community.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yep.
We can wrap this segment.
So the way this is going to work, again, this is all very new for us. So feedback for everything is appreciated. I'm going to hope this is the right button. Right now, over on the forums, you will see that there are a bunch of different posts where these questions will be housed. So these are questions we're coming to you with because they're things we're thinking about at the moment, and we'd love to get your input on it. So question 1, focused on maps, is what do you feel adds meaning and importance to geographical areas of the map? And I know people are going to run to answer this now, but what we're asking is that you think on this and you listen to the design intent and what our thoughts are, and then you go to the forums and post those responses.
Yeah, just for context here, I think what the old province system in Rome 2 and past titles really focused on giving provinces and regions a very strong identity, and sometimes maybe pushing it too far, where people felt like, okay, I'm too limited with my options. But I think regional, let's say, a strong regional character is really important for a strategy game. It provides spatial gameplay. It provides a lot of storytelling as well. It gives a lot of theme to regions. And I think in past games, we tried a lot of different things. Like Shogun 2, for example, had these specific resources. Like if you wanted war horses, you had to capture a certain specific region. And I think we were curious about sort of the opinion in the community about what has worked really well in the past, what people have enjoyed, but maybe has not worked so well, and probably aware of a lot of these things, but so that's sort of the idea behind this.
I can't scroll up, but people, if I can remember, people saying things like they want to see specific weather localized to certain regions, more unique landmarks for provinces. Are those the kind of things you're looking for when you're asking about meaning and importance of those areas?
Yeah.
So well done to the people who said that. Yeah. You answered straight.
No, I will pause. What do you all think adds meaning and importance to geographical areas? I'm thinking we definitely need it to make huge impact on the battle maps themselves. What Pharaoh did with the individual maps and how terrain isn't geographical areas, but the terrain you have in those areas taking huge impact on the map. Like I was saying there, the different geographical areas having different weather patterns that are more common or are there to mess with the just the gameplay there in general. More landmarks would be good, but that's not. I don't know if that's so more geographical or that's more the people or just the different factions being able to build up special buildings in different areas. That'd be rather cool, or just having I don't know, get more monuments that are available. Not in the way that Pharaoh does, because in reality we don't really build up just obelisks all over the place to honor the gods. So things that are more like maybe you want to, if this is a region, you want to build up a church there for whatever, like a small chapel for one of the smaller regions. That'd be really neat. So maybe a small amount of variance on what you can build in the different regions, so like the smaller little sub regions. So if there's iron in this area that's a mine, that way you want to be able to only get iron if you have some access to it in a mine nearby. Same thing with those war horses like you're talking about. You should only get access to the kind of resource if you have access to that resource through one of your regions, which I think is a really good idea. So it needs to impact the battles. Huge impact on the battles. Make good maps that actually feel like they are integrated into whatever that geographical area is, and they give you good tactical advantage or disadvantage depending on what you're using.
Off the bat, and you've given an answer that's valid.
Because we absolutely want the world to feel. I mean, this is something that we always talk about is creating kind of the most an authentic, a real sense of space, place. So having things that feel natural to the world based on based on the geography, such as the weather and resources, just feels. Ideally, we want it to feel less contrived, less gamey, more kind of ingrained in the actual world.
Yeah, and I think when we talk about immersion, I think it's important to clarify that it's really that mechanical and narrative immersion we are really interested in. Right? It's not about making it the most polished visual. Immersion isn't a great Hollywood moment. I mean, can contribute, right? But I think a big part of the immersion that we're aiming for with Med 3 here is really feeling like you are in that world because you're feeling the mechanics represent the world.
And the world is alive. It feeds back to you. It makes sense. You know.
And some of the things I've seen here are, I know things that we've thought about. Something someone said, trade naturally, creating like barriers and paths between. I bring that up because I want that. And that's how some of those things will work. But naturally trade with villages but someone's saying they'd love to see more things inside of regions like towns and villages.
Well,
so shall we move on to our next section?
That nicely leads us into
So let's go back to the game. Which is that button. And we are going to talk about regions.
Oh, nice. So before they even get speaking, let's kind of take a look here. So we have in the city of Burgos, which I'm probably mispronouncing, we've got nobles, townsfolk, peasants. We're breaking down the populations again, which is really good to see. You've got your food, you got your region wealth, and your income. Awesome. So they got farmland, lumber camps, mines. You got your buildings, characters, military. Like I said, all of this is going to be, like they've said several times, all of this is going to be subject to change, but this is at least going to be the kind of the placeholder. So they have ideas to have governors for areas that likely will be separate from your military leaders, and they can probably be the same. Farmland, lumber camp, mines, quarries, castles. 2 castles in the city. So these 2 castles are part of the Burgos region. That's really cool.
Regions. So what constitutes a region?
Right. So first, to start with a little caveat, because I think if you look at the UI, it might sound a little bit like, or it might look a lot like building slots. Don't get distracted by that. We're going to get to that in a moment. So what constitutes a region? So as I was saying earlier, you have your, so this is our Burgos region, with Burgos being the administrative capital. That's sort of the main settlement of the region. And not too dissimilar from titles like Empire, you have what we call regional developments. These are, let's say, points of interest or important areas within that region that provides you with certain things. So for example, in Burgos, we have here a little lumber camp currently, which is also represented by the UI here. And these are sort of, let's say, properties and resources, sometimes actual resources, sometimes just places that create something for the region. Obviously, Empire, the famous universities. You could think of, in medieval 3, you could think of cloisters and
could be population centers, village, fishing, village or a town as well.
And these are currently growing, so you can upgrade them and you can grow them over time, and we are exploring ways to maybe add dynamic automatic growth. Like as the population grows, perhaps there would be, these would grow. So
villages would pop up as a...
That would be cool. So you have more sprawl that pops up around it as just the population in those small villages increases. That'd be incredible. And it also is kind of like a sub upgrade to it as well. So you have to have population for these, obviously, but maybe on top of having to have the population to upgrade it, it also adds sprawl and other bonuses as well, which would be so cool. Oh, you've got your navy down here too. I didn't realize I see. So you got your castles, your town, and then your navy.
The populations
Yep.
blossom,
Exactly.
you would have these areas of kind of develop organically.
And
as they
then,
will.
like just to show another one here, if we zoom over to Leon, not sure if you can see it from here, but you can see there's a quarry here. No, sorry, a mine. And Burgos doesn't have a mine, so immediately you could think of, okay, some of these could be very specific, like, uh-oh. Sorry.
If you give me the mouse, I am so used to the setup that I've had to create for this.
So some might be a little bit more generic, like farms and lumber camps, whereas others would be more specific to a region. Oh, vineyards is very special. You only get that in certain regions. It could be sort of a classic Total War.
So that geographical variety comes in as well, based on we should definitely want to get in.
Which is an idea I quite like, having different resources only being available in certain areas is why the bronze, kind of part of the reason the Bronze Age ended is because it was so difficult to source tin, and if you just controlled the area that was mining the tin, then no one gets any bronze, so it's kind of cool stuff. That's what we need to see in the geographical regions, like they've already kind of got going.
So at the moment you've clicked on the region, not the city, or?
Yeah, it's currently, I mean, the UI is obviously, work in progress, but it's all one thing right now. And then I think the thing we're really excited about is sort of how could we take this further? And one idea that we really liked was, you were mentioning earlier, you actually impact the world, and the world responds to your actions, and you feel like 100 turns in, you look at the map and you're, oh wow, I've really developed my regions in a specific way.
And the key is allowing you to do that differently depending on your playthrough. So it's not, you're not always going, the regions don't develop in the same way because either that's the best way or because that's just the way it's set up to flow. No, you can do it depending on the context of your campaign at the time.
Someone said, why is Burgos's mine not in the mountains? That would break the immersion you're talking about. And again, a great point to pull out. I could build a port on land. This is us finding out and working out these mechanics before you commit to a lot of development time.
The design team putting these things together isn't caring about the art matching at this stage. The artists aren't caring about matching it up exactly because that's not where we're at. This is pre-production where we're kind of playing with all of these.
Would be very upset right now.
So anyone watching real close and looking to nitpick the areas where the mines are, don't worry about that just yet. Likely, yes, they'll put things in, they'll match them where they're supposed to be, so the mines will be in the mountains or areas that actually have deposits of metals, and it's not just gonna be, oh look, we're gonna have a lumber camp in the middle of a river.
He would be, but once we, as the process goes, as we develop the game, once we set, okay, this is where the resources are. That's when we focus on having everything built around that to make sure that it's, it's solid.
So, even down to, and again, I really think that a lot of this is going to be us learning, and I think we're getting there, but also the community learning with us. So, any questions about, can you improve the UI for, none of this is going to be in the in the final game.
And that's and like I said, that's part of the learning. We mentioned at the start that we've never shown a game this early.
Exactly.
Right. So, no one is used to seeing a Total War game at this stage. So it makes sense why, something that looks clearly broken is like, well, why is that broken? Well, that's because that's not an area of focus right now, and it won't be potentially for another, who knows how long. So it's something that'll become, I think, more comfortable and clearer as we stream more, as we talk more about the game, as we show more, and also the context of it will make sense when we're asking for feedback, and then we're seeing that feedback.
Cool. So what we can show is sort of how you can shape your regions over time. So for example, I could take a castle and construct it here. Or I could take a harbor town and construct it here. So you get to choose where to place it. Obviously in the final game there would be maybe a construction process. It would grow over time. So this is barely debugged. But I think from a gameplay mechanic point of view, we're super excited about sort of you leaving a mark on the world as you progress. These things are not popping up, randomly. You get to shape where you want the port. Do you want it there, or do you want the port
something
here to the end of the region?
Exactly. Something I loved about Empire.
Now that's a really cool idea. So you have access to a port. You have access to maybe a number of them you can build. And you could just build ports along the coastline. That would be crazy. Imagine, so the things you're building are actually impacting the map and changing how it looks. What an idea.
Empires, how these little areas could kind of develop over time and then become interactable eventually when you put, when you reach a certain level, and it's something that we really want to do here. That again, as your region develops, as it grows, these things become available to you. But then you have the choice. So it's instead of having a region with just a couple of resources, here there are a lot of places you can choose to place these elements down.
So you guys, you can't see chat.
So maybe you're limited on the number of these different smaller kind of ancillary villages you can set up, but it's still such a cool idea.
I think it's fair to say that is maybe the most positive, like universally positive and loved I've ever seen a moment on stream.
I mean, it's got us excited, right? Because again, this gives you that variation in your playthroughs, right? You know where you put that castle means something. Be it looking over trade routes or defensible positions against your your neighbors. It's going to be different depending on your campaign, depending on the state of play.
Where you're placed on your harbor might determine where your trade routes go, with who you can trade, right? Yep. So I think that level of authorship is super exciting.
And that's where we talk about the scale as well, giving you that so much more room to play and engage with. And that's going to be varied depending on where you are in the world. This is where we talked about previously, about playing tall. And if you've got a region that's much smaller, you maybe have less to develop geographically, but then you're focusing on your city, on your urban kind of center.
Yeah, we are currently, this is all fairly early, but we are currently thinking that the let's say unlocking these developments you can place on the map, there will be more control on the realm level. So you have to decide not just where in the region does it go, but also where in your realm, which region does it get it, right? So you have some interesting choices to make there.
Okay, so that sounds like you have more of a cap, kind of faction-wide for, say, lumber camps, farms, or ports, or what have you. So it's going to be more of a that's very interesting. It's more of a faction-wide, so you can decide where those ports go, but you only have a certain number of them to actually plop down in your faction.
Well, is there anything else you want to say about regions? I think you've covered all the questions. There were, you've answered limitations. Why we're moving towards more campaign map interaction, how many areas a region can contain.
Well, we talked about how many areas. So here, in this particular one, there's around 30?
Yeah,
roughly.
Yep.
Around 30 is a lot. So maybe that's going to, I don't know, we'll have to see. So 30 of these little smaller sub-regions inside of each. That's a lot, and it's probably more depending on which, or what kind of region, the size of that region in general.
And that's going to vary depending on where in the world you are. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, then, people have seen kind of what we're working on. If you're happy, we can go and ask them what they want to see more.
Yeah.
So, question 2, which will be on our forums now, is 2 questions. We've hidden 2 questions in 1 question. So the first of those is, what kind of regional improvements would you want to construct outside of the main settlement? So is that the things like castles and ports?
Yes, exactly. I mean, we haven't... I think very early with the content catalog in that place, and you could think of so many cool examples there. But we would love to hear from the community what sort of excites them the most about it.
I think we spoke examples of Empire and universities.
Yeah.
And so what are the things that they think are maybe necessary, iconic?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the second question is, how differently would you expect the inherent properties of each region to feel, and what level of impact should they have?
Yeah, so that's maybe a bit nerdy, that question, but I think when you're trying to sort of build a simulation of the world, obviously what you get to is that there's a lot of in a way a lot of that's similarities between regions with some nuances that are different. But I think ultimately for a great game you want to exaggerate a little, like how different regions are, and that's of course where you get, maybe sometimes you push it too far, where no, you cannot get war horses in this region, you need this other region, right? And I think it will be a bit of a journey for us to really find that right balance, and that's where we're curious about community feedback there in terms of how strong should the spatial gameplay and campaign be. We know we want it to be strong, but finding that threshold, that sweet spot.
without
and,
trying.
and this is where where that fine balancing and tweaking comes in, right? Where we're in a world where we're placing everything. Maybe there's more limitations. Maybe it's more organic growth, right? Maybe it's it's all about how these things will play together as part of the bigger picture, and that's part of the pre-production. That's part of us kind of zeroing in on these features and finding the best way to apply them.
So without leading them, just to help people understand that what those kinds of properties would be like. You used War Horses of Shogun 2 as an example. What would you see is a difference in a region in Medieval 3?
I think it's sort of how much black and white there is. Like you can do certain things in region A, but never in region B.
Yep.
It will be very black and white. If it's totally fluid, there will be sort of gray soup. And where do we sit in between these extremes?
Fantastic. Well, I think that brings us on to our next topic, which
So before they move on to topics, so we need to figure out which kind of regional improvements we'd like to see. Of course, you want to see things like mines. You want to probably see things like, I don't know, like master smithies, like they're talking about universities. Chapels, of course, for the different kinds of religions. Let's find, maybe we can get different guilds you can get up, depending on, if you, guilds like in Medieval 2, bring those back, but have them be part of the regions themselves. And maybe you start off by going, I want one of these guild halls in these certain areas, and that could kind of start building up the guild of like merchant guild or agricultural guild or whatever it might be. You want forts. Let's see what else we need. Different kinds of ports. So you want to have your different ports. It could be maybe a fishing port or whatever. That's probably just in the overall region itself. Lots of variants in the different things you can build would be great, and then upgrades for those as well that are actually meaningful. How differently we want the inherent properties. I think for a lot of the regions, you want that to be very dependent on what the actual properties are. So if it's a mountainous region, that should definitely have a really impactful kind of be very impactful on the gameplay, unless you're a people who are very used to living in the mountains, where like if you're playing as maybe Saladin or one of the more Egyptian factions out in the desert, you should be very accustomed to war in the desert and living in the desert, whereas opposed to maybe you're playing as the Swiss. They are they're not used to the desert or the sand at all. That'd be that kind of thing sounds very good. So your people being adaptable over time too would be something that would be really cool. So if their population has been in the sand, like in the desert for a very long time, and maybe they were in England before, they are going to start to adapt to that region, and the harshness of it is going to start to kind of wear off over time as you start to adapt to that region. That's a lot of complexity, but I think it'd be lots of fun. Let's continue.
which is halfway through all of our topics. It's not population. So many people have seen that little population,
course,
and they are
yeah.
dying for us to talk about. We will get population is the one after this, I promise. But firstly, we're going to talk about construction. So to
Yes.
finish off that kind of city
Yes,
management
exactly.
element.
And especially, I think felt important to talk about because I think the UI here, our placeholder UI, is alluding to slots more than what we intend to do. Again, this is something that we've been seeing community feedback for this for probably a decade. Around building slots and the pros and cons around it. And one thing we want to move away from is that hard cap on slots.
Yep.
So removing the idea that you have 6 slots in a settlement and you need to decide which buildings you create, and instead create a situation where ultimately you can create all buildings in the city.
Yeah.
Of course, there
It'd
would
be
be
difficult,
exactly,
but
there
it
would
is
be other
possible. Yeah.
factors, right? Like how much you invest in the infrastructure in that city, how much it grows generally. So it doesn't mean it gives you immediate freedom, but ultimately you can build up the mega cities you want.
Yep.
And this is beautiful. So just make it that it's going to have some kind of, upkeep, of course, but maybe some kind of administration cost, where the better your governor is at actual administration, and like they're saying, the infrastructure you have to actually support all these different settlements. Otherwise, you're going to have squalor and different things, plague pop up because you're badly planning your cities, and that's going to have repercussions for the people living there. That sounds beautiful.
And specialize your regions with much more, let's say, freedom.
But it kind of plays into that fantasy of playing Seoul as a city state where you can really, you can have everything in that one place if you invest in it.
But one thing we talked about is how that, let's say, that slot system had some nice elements as well. Like the building chains, for example, were ultimately quite interesting in how they provided you with that, let's say, the little tweak on a certain flavor. It had a little theme as well, right? Like you upgrade your your market from level 2 to 3, and you get to decide, is it like a food trader or is it a wine market or slave market, right? And that was very strong thematically, but I think that choice always felt a little bit limiting. Like it almost like, yeah, I get the vineyard or the wine trader, but I don't get the food market.
And it can also be a bit gamey, a bit contrived, and moving away from that kind of that sense of reality and
Exactly,
you
it didn't feel particularly authentic, and it was quite limiting. So our current thinking of how we are solving this is by seeing these, let's say, the nuances of our old chains more like perks you can apply to a building. We could look at the lumber camp here as an example, and again, all effects, nothing will stay like this, everything placeholder. But as an example here, I have my lumber camp, and I might be able to apply this perk, which is a hunting lodge, where you could imagine it almost like a separate building that gets added to that lumber camp. Okay, there's now a hunting lodge, which we can see just as a sort of almost like a flavor effect here, that it increases food production every turn in that building. Or I go with another perk, which is glaciers, which increases wealth of my urban estate. But the kicker here, where it's different to chains, is that ultimately you can do both. So you can really build up your.
Now, this is a good idea. If you have a lumber camp, definitely if you have a lumber camp that also has a hunting lodge attached to the side, then you can do that, and you can also just build onto it. So just not having the limitation where you're locked down one line of building is a good idea for the minor settlements, because that's not how settlements develop throughout history. So having it so you can have all three of those chains, and you can develop down them hopefully a little bit, so it's not just the one perk. You can go with the hunting lodge, and maybe it gets a larger hunting lodge where you get up to, I don't know, maybe like a game master's lodge where you can actually train up archers better, something like that. That'd be incredible.
Mega lumber camp or your mega market, right, where all the perks that you have unlocked you add to that one market building in Venice to really push that fantasy.
Or Milan, as people have been saying.
Of course, our favorite. Yeah. So I think it feels really great because it combines the best things of both worlds, where you get the flavor and the mechanical nuance from the slot system and the chains, while giving you, let's say, the freedom of a slotless system.
We still need to figure out how to make it all fit on a UI, but that's part of the joys of pre-production. And obviously, everything is, you can see PH as placeholder.
Yep.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah. So, and of course, building content, we're very early. I think it's fair to say that we want to capture the fantasy of building up your main core settlement with, let's say, the urban infrastructure you imagine about the medieval cities. We talked a lot about urbanization and how fast you drive this forward. How much do you modernize your economy effectively?
Exactly.
That will all be happening in that city, or you focus more on developing your rural developments to push your peasantry and
we'll get to that, but exactly, it feeds into the populations and the population classes that you want to kind of focus on based on the type of playthrough you want to have, and based on the kind of region that you're playing in, the faction you're playing in, will all play a role in how you want to position that development, whether you want to focus on that rural or the urban.
I saw a really fantastic question, and it's absolutely scrolled off out of my mind. But it was, hold on, let's see if it comes back to me. It was someone asking about, will those perks be limited by technology or policies that you take? And that is a great question for the community. So we can, if you guys are right with it,
to be limited by
we'll
technologies.
So the questions that we had here for construction are, what are the limitations that you would like to see on slotless construction? So it's all well and good to, maybe it gets more expensive the more things you build, but we, I think you were speaking about other ideas of tied to technologies, or even tied to resources, and or population count. So what would you guys expect to see the limitations of an unlimited system be there? And the second
question being, what building perks would you be interested to see? That one is much more, it's vague and ambiguous. Just you got your normal stuff for upgrading your food, just what would make sense for the building itself. So if you're setting up, of course, a lumber camp that fixes up more wood for you, or more, and it also is going to probably give you bonuses to your production in the cities itself, which sounds like good stuff. Just something that makes sense give it a couple of layers too, not where it's just like, oh, you get some wood and you could use that for trade. No, it needs to be a couple of layers that you could utilize in your empire. Have it find a way to making your either your soldiers cheaper. So if you're getting like a lumber camp, spearmen and units that maybe utilize a lot of wood in their equipment are going to be cheaper. So spearmen are like archers or the like, that kind of thing would be cool. As far as what limitations I would like to see on slotless construction, perhaps depending on what it is, your technology is a good idea. So maybe the highest tier of something or a kind of like a leap in technology that would require an actual technology node to unlock, like a water wheel or something that would actually require excess information. So only those higher tier or maybe very unique tier upgrades to the slotless construction, and then things like your region, of course. But besides that, I don't know that too many other limitations. What all would you think? And then let me know in the comments below, and we can let CA know together.
Second part, focus on those building perks. I think you wanted to clarify as well, perks is a word we're using. It's probably not the word that makes it in-game.
No.
It's
So you will probably
it's the
over
cover.
time hear a lot of sort of these in development terms.
Yeah.
Probably,
Yeah.
Sometimes a bit more mechanically inspired, but
Yep.
Yeah.
And throw some suggestions for the word perk if you want.
yeah, by all means.
But yeah, what kind of perks would you be interested to see? So, if you've seen the lumber camps and you've gone, oh, I have a really specific idea of a kind of lumber camp, but also more of what gameplay mechanic interactions would you expect them to see, which will make more sense as we start to talk about population and
we can delve more into that as we talk more in detail about the kind of building chains and developments we're going to have, so we can do more targeted kind of blogs and sessions around those particular themes, just to give more kind of context to what particular perks are we talking about, because obviously right now the suggestion is going to be about everything we've got on the screen, but there's going to be more, so we can do more targeted kind of bits. And it'd be good if we drop a link in the chat for the forum.
Oh, don't you worry, it's every 50 messages I think it gets sent. It's also in the description.
So go to the link in the chat and in the description, sign up to the forums where you can talk directly to us, give us your feedback, and answer these questions, which will be in there.
And the hope as well is, as we say, this is a consistent level of conversation we want to have with the community. So you're answering those questions. That isn't going into the void. Not only are they going to be read, the hope is, be it blog, be it another stream, we can come back to you guys with our thoughts on those responses, what we've taken from them.
And in between the streams as well, in between the big blogs, we're posting and discussing topics in the forums. So do come along.
Okay. Are we ready for population?
Yes.
Do it.
Maybe the most posted word in chat. Okay.
Yeah.
Build a website you love with Wix. For your words,
Which
You're answering those questions. That isn't going into the void. Not only are they going to be read, the hope is, be it blog, be it another stream, we can come back to you guys with our thoughts on those responses, what we've taken from them.
And in between the streams as well, in between the big blogs, we're posting and discussing topics in the forums. So do come along.
Okay. Are we ready for population?
yes.
Do it.
Maybe the most posted word in chat. Okay.
Which I mean, we talked about this earlier, right? That I think at some point early next year, we probably want to do a separate stream just on population, because there's so much to talk about there. I was talking earlier about let's say building the skeleton, and I think the way we look at it is that the key components of what drives your game is your wealth and your people.
Yeah.
But it's really population sits very much at the core of a lot of things, of a lot of features we're building on campaign. So there's a lot there. This was more like we talk about today, I think, is more as a preview.
Population's there.
They can see the numbers.
And it means something.
But there's still some things worthwhile to talk about. So I guess the
We've had numbers in the past.
Yeah. The starting point is what I would call the realness of it, right? I wanted to make sure that it's not just a number. In Three Kingdoms, we try to, get some of the immersion in, but just showing a number. But that that we almost count these, like, where are they and what are they doing? And of course, the prime example that I'm sure is currently mentioned in chat is the idea that when you muster your troops, you muster the peasant spearmen, then they're not on your fields anymore. They're not on your regions. They're not working on the.
And we haven't had this since Rome 1,
exactly.
Well,
Rome 1 really. So I think that realness is really important. It creates a lot of cool knock-ons mechanically, right? Like you lead your armies to the great conquest in the east. Oh, whoops, your stack is wiped. Now these people are gone. They're not going to come back. They're gone from your fields and workshops as well, right? So I think that that's sort of making it a real thing in the world that transfers. If you think of migration, it's not just the bonus growth in adjacent regions. It's literally people moving from one place to the other. So that's the first one.
As well as moving from the urban centers to rural,
exactly,
and, not just between neighboring regions, but also from your cities to the farms and vice versa.
So that you could almost call this like the first, let's say, pillar around our approach to population, is that it needs to be real in the world.
Yeah.
The second one that obviously you can see on screen already is, of course, the estates. I wouldn't say that this is necessarily our final set or the final number by any means, but it definitely felt like that's the starting point. Like when you think of medieval population, you think of these three major estates and how they then interact with each other. Of course, immediately the impact on recruitment, where certain troops, your noble knights would tap into nobles.
Yeah, at least for the medieval Europeans, it's going to be very much set on the three states of man, where you got your laborers, your clergy, and your warriors, and it's very broken down into that, and they like it that way. So that having it where the different populations are interacted with differently depending on the different culture you were a part of, kind of the overarching culture, would be awesome. I don't know exactly how, because especially if you get over into the kind of the more Middle Eastern cultures, it tends to be more two states of man than three. But let's continue.
And your peasant spearmen would tap into your peasant population, and immediately you can see from these numbers, they're not necessarily final, but I think they are sort of representing, you could say, an overall intent and an overall situation in the medieval world, where immediately you can see that hiring a unit of nobles would probably drain that pool quite quickly. So nobles especially are very susceptible, very vulnerable to be.
And that's a really cool idea, where like your noble and knightly orders are going to be very difficult to replenish, but your peasant archers, peasant spearmen, peasant swordsmen, all of your kind of state troops are going to be much faster for you to actually get into battle. So if you were to go all in on upgrading your peasant warriors, you are probably going to get a better bang for your buck than upgrading your nobles, but your nobles are going to be much more heavy-hitting, more heavily armored, much more survivable, but also way more difficult to replenish when fallen.
Be lost in war. Townsfolk less so, and then peasant, it's almost like quite abundant. And that, of course, will have knock-ons to how you build your economy. Which of these estates are you trying to foster the most, grow the most? But also it ties into the economy.
Who do you want to grow the most? Note who has the largest number. In most cases, I will have to try this on our own. I cannot wait for this to come out. But we're going to see how far you can push the peasants and their warriors, whatever. If they're going to continue that system, that should be lots of fun. Just absolute endless hordes of peasant archers.
Which we're going to talk a little bit about later.
I will just say to all of the fantastic team out there who are helping feed me questions, my screen has frozen on the chat that I get to see their questions on. So if someone can come in and scroll a mouse down on that computer, I have to keep checking my phone for that chat. But I did see the message. So just to, before we move on to the question itself, I just wanted to recontextualize people who are coming in. So I saw someone say, oh, the art style looks very much like Civ. This is not an art style. This is our, oh, thank you, it scrolled. It just sometimes scrolls itself and sometimes doesn't. But yeah, this isn't an art style that we've settled on.
This is the style of our blockout.
Exactly.
Work in progress.
Same thing with UI.
We just, we like to add color even to the blockout, so it's just more pleasurable for us to playtest, rather than just looking at a gray.
Yeah, I think it was probably referring to the 3D blockouts, right?
Yes,
I think really, really important to highlight that this is, I think that's one of, you had mentioned this early on, that you could look at this and think, oh, is this an art style you're going for? But no, this is untextured blockout.
we've got an art Bible. I mean, at some point we'll probably talk about our art pillars and that kind of stuff. But
I think that would probably be its own rally point. Right?
Absolutely, it's a rally point. But Medfree will be a realistic looking game. We're going for a realism. That's for us. That's kind of bread and butter of what we intend to do in historical titles. It's the ultimate time machine. So it's about representing representing the world as really as possible. So yeah, this is absolutely not an art style
and I
at
think
this stage.
The community, and as I say, like there's not a culture shock, but there is a shock there that we're all getting through of that we're so used to showing them things that are final or near final,
exactly.
And this is so far
there are no
away
textures
from
or materials here, just colors.
You'll see gaming documentaries that won't show things this far. Like that, they'll polish those up for the documentary.
Yeah.
So this is us really trying to have an open dialogue and make sure. And do you know what? Because I saw someone in chat had said,
these region borders are a good example.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Jaggy diagonal squares. That's not. We're not going to have that in the final game.
Someone in chat had said, we'll see if they live up to. Or what it's like at a certain point. This is the people who put out X game or Y game, but this is not just us saying, look at this, buy, right? The point of this is that we build that game and we communicate the whole time. So you guys are understanding what we're doing, why we're doing it. You're having an input. We're having a conversation.
We're lifting the veil behind how we make games. We're showing you the process, guts and all. Right?
Exactly.
This is how we make a total war game. This is our approach. This is how we approach it. These are the steps we take. This is and these streams, the blogs are going to be a journey of this is how Medfree is going to come together. We call it building medieval free. That's what this is.
We have.
It's how all of those pieces come together to form the whole. So when we compare this screenshot of what we have, down the line, it's going to be very different. This is maybe the forms and scale is maybe somewhere where we're aiming, but even that's not locked out. It's all iterative.
But that was the plan from a while back, right? I said it so many times during the stream, but this is such an important game to the community. You can see it in the love and the immediate questions they get, and I really want you to talk about religion, and we're not clicking the religion button. But
we see that
to us too.
We see that passion, and we've seen it in response to everything we've been putting out up until now, which is this is why we wanted to announce Medfree so early, so we could tap into that into that passion and share what we're doing, because we know it's so meaningful.
In a way, the fact that we're doing this stream today is already, let's say, a result of community feedback, right? Because initially we thought, okay, we're gonna mainly talk about the vision and show a bit of the game later, but I think it was clear that the community wanted to see an actual, show me actual facts. Don't bore me with vision. Show me how it's actually currently working, what you're actually thinking, and then we can talk about this sort of at a clearer gameplay example.
So I did derail us, but we can move on to the questions for population. If there's anything else you wanted to say about population.
No, I think we covered sort of that preview. I should mention as well that because religion was mentioned then. So yeah, you can see the estates here. Of course, when you think of the medieval era, you also think of religion as an important, could say, property of a person. And one element really important for us is culture. Because we feel like there were a lot of, let's say, cultural nuances within realms adopting certain cultures, new cultures emerging, and cultures also tying into recruitment.
Units.
So, exactly. Yeah. So ultimately, that's sort of the current three main properties for people is what estate are they, what religion, and what culture. And all of these have tendrils to construction, recruitment, and other mechanics. And we're going to dive more deeper into that in another stream, because we're just about to change a few things around in that space, and I'm going to wait for that to be ready.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for now, our question to the community around population is, how would you expect the dynamics between population estates to be represented? So what does that question mean?
So you can see here food as an example. So food is obviously something that mainly gets created in the medieval world and in the rural areas, in the farmland and fields. And to support your city, where the urban townsfolk live, where the workshops are and whatnot, you need to produce food, because ultimately they receive their food by buying it from rural population. So that's one example for how these estates interact with each other. And we are still, let's say, exploring that space, thinking about a few economic hooks as well in between these. We are thinking about some interesting applications of the noble.
And while those 3 estates probably aren't, they may even have more estates later on, but we'll just work with those 3 for now. I kind of already have an idea. So where your peasants are going to be mainly focused on the production of resources and food, just the production of things in general. How they're the ones that are out there actually producing the items that the townsfolk or whatever your tradesmen, your second tier of citizen, are going to be actually turning into income and trade and things like that. So your second tier is going to be more focused on making money, trading, kind of that sort of thing. Actually powering the economy of your empire. Whereas the nobles, they're going to be mainly focused on kind of martial expertise. They're going to be focused on kind of your research, your diplomacy, that sort of thing. They're your kind of court that is powering forward your your diplomacy and kind of your overall research for your faction. Where you can have some of that in with your tradesmen too, where you've got your kind of researchers and then maybe your higher tier researchers in the nobles. That'd be kind of neat. Anyway, what all would you like to see? Let me know.
The state, how they might shape some of that automatic growth within your region I was talking about earlier. Basically, the more nobles you have and the more wealthy they are, they almost like take on some of the development for you. So these would be examples for these, let's say, interactions between the states. Obviously, if you look at the history, there would be a lot more examples, and we're curious about what the community would love to see, what they might have thought of before, and yeah.
And yeah, and I mean, you talked about nobles and peasants, but there's also the townsfolk and what they're producing in the towns that then influences the noble populations and the peasants. So there's this whole interplay that's really important.
Why can't my peasants survive on zeal?
Alone.
Zeal alone. That's the dream of every priest, I guess. Yeah.
That then, I believe, will bring us to our last of the segments, which is taxation and wealth.
Yeah. We started a joke about how taxation is the most sexy topic, but very important.
That's why we saved it to last.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's very important for a medieval realm. That's how you ultimately fund all your.
If you're living with severe alopecia areata, it's time to
all your endeavors.
Doesn't survive on zeal.
Alone.
Zeal alone. That's the dream of every priest, I guess. Yeah.
That then, I believe, will bring us to our last of the segments, which is taxation and wealth.
Yeah. We started a joke about how taxation is the most sexy topic, but very important.
That's why we saved it to last.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's very important for a medieval realm. That's how you ultimately fund all your endeavors, right? So, a few things we wanted to share. The first one again is the realness in the world. There are so cool examples from Shogun 2 where you had that concept of town wealth. So over time, your regions and towns would accumulate wealth, which would boost your taxation. But also, if that settlement got sacked, the enemy could literally take it from you. And that realness, that groundedness of that, let's say, currency in the world feels so cool. And we wanted to take that a few steps further, essentially, that you care about the income, what you extract. You also really care about how you're building the wealth across all of your estates within a region. So you can see right now in Burgos, we have 10,000 wealth. In a future stream, we can talk about how that's broken down into the different estates. But the total number that you mostly care about is 10,000. And you care about that because that's the currency you can, that's almost like your piggy bank. You might be able to.
So that's the amount you're making for the region itself, whereas the income is just coming out of the city of Burgos. That makes sense.
To tap into that with war taxes. You have to protect it because the enemy might take it out. Your vassals might use it, right? So there's a lot of, let's say, how that currency is then moving around. Just like the population can move around the world, that wealth will move around the world. You might use that wealth to fund the supply train for your army when you go to war, right? So a lot of important, like building that piggy bank is really important, and then using it, exploiting it in the right way is really important.
So you've spoken about population being a persistent thing within the world. It would be similar for wealth.
Exactly, yeah. And the income, equally, the income here is essentially the tax you're receiving every turn. It's, again, literally taken out. So if you tax your population heavily, or your regions rather heavily, you know, let's say, continuously tap into your piggy bank. You know, you're not saving up for important time.
Oh, so it's more of a bank of wealth then. That's interesting. So maybe this is the current income for your region, and this is the bank of income that you can kind of pull from to make upgrades to the region itself, or you have to maybe put it into like a main pool of money. That is very interesting.
Right?
But how you're taxing can be different as well. It's not just
Exactly.
a slider.
Exactly. That's where the extraction method comes in. How do you tax your people? Obviously, we had the tax slider for a long time, but we did some exciting research a few months ago where one of our senior designers looked into sort of the different medieval tax methods, and we're like, oh wow, this translates very naturally actually into a total war game where, let's say, the classic total war tax is what we would call systemic tax, basically a percentage of your wealth gets taxed. But there are other cool taxation methods like rent and tributes that are a little bit more tied into, let's say, what the makeup of your region is, not just how much wealth there is, but how much land is there, how much farmland, how much market towns are there, and that determines that number. So basically giving players not just the opportunity to move a slider up and down, but rather fully change how that is calculated effectively.
Yeah. Depending on your faction, depending on
Exactly, yeah.
you know, on how you've set yourself up, depending on how you develop and progress, you may unlock new ways to
New ways
tax.
to tax.
Bring
Isn't
you know,
that's like
making,
most exciting.
well, you know, you
My
mentioned at the
favorite.
beginning, but we are, you know, making tax sexy. It's more than just a slider. It's a you know, a really engaging kind
It's a slider with curves.
of way to shape the way that you
Tap into
you
that,
tap into that you know, the income of your realm.
Yeah, and then you know, other examples would be if you sort of talked about how you might use, when you raise an army, you might use some of that wealth to fund, let's say, the supply train.
Yep.
You know, if you take that army to another land, that army gets defeated by the enemy, they rob the supply train. They're not just getting plus 15 of some other thing. They're literally
Physically
taking
getting your wealth. Yeah.
essentially transferring the wealth over, where if they disband, that wealth gets now communicated.
Yeah.
Communicated.
Now that's very cool. So the money's just not just being generated from thin air. They are actively taking the baggage trains of whatever the kind of forces that you're looting, which is a really good idea. Although it does mean you can't get into the kind of crazy Warhammer Total War stuff where you take out an army, you just get an insane amount of money for the win, which is a little sad. But maybe they'll have something similar where you're still able to boost up how much loot you get after battle. Maybe not to an obscene, unrealistic degree, but something that does make sense, and you're still getting a nice chunk of money.
Transported to that other realm.
And same
So
with,
more
I guess,
reason
the
So that
looting
transfer.
More reason to build that castle along the
Exactly, yeah.
to defend that route.
Fantastic. Well, I believe we may have broken games together in that so many
Oh.
people are logging in to try and give feedback.
Wonderful.
So
Amazing.
Maybe give it 5 minutes if you're not able to log in.
Please try again.
But yeah, we will. If there's anything else you want to say on tax, we can jump into the next. We can jump into the questions themselves.
Yep.
What is the number? It's that one. So this is, I think, a broader question that maybe anyone, even if you've only seen bits of this stream, you've only been popping, will be able to jump into, which is, what have you enjoyed about different economic systems in past Total War titles and other strategy games? So we have our ideas of how tax and wealth works. We want to know what the things you really liked, like, you know, Taxi is how they're trying to put.
These are very good questions. What do you all think in the comments? I'm gonna have to give this one a little bit more of a proper good think before I answer this one. But what have you enjoyed about different economic systems in Total War titles and other strategy games, and what benefits or consequences feel meaningful around taxation and wealth? Taxation is it seems like one of those that's more straightforward than normal. Heavy taxation is going to hurt the people, but it's one of those things that's just nations have done throughout history to build up money in times of war or to recover from a war. So low taxation going to be helpful for the people because they're going to have more money to put back in the economy, which is therefore going to actually grow your economy. That cool stuff. So just benefits and consequences, and what have you enjoyed? Moving on.
put tax and sexy together. But what are the systems that you interacted with and you came away thinking that really helped immerse me in the world or made it feel very living?
And there's a full spectrum out there, right? Not only in our own games, but there's other games. You've got the kind of production chain kind of economies of certain RTS games, or there's even, like I say, even our past titles that focus slightly differently on this approach. So I think it's definitely good to hear what works and what could work in the context of Total War.
And the second part of that being, then what are the benefits and consequences that feel meaningful around taxation and wealth? So we've spoken a little bit about things we'd like to do, of the problems with having too much or too little wealth in a province, how you might make it an appetizing target for an enemy. But what the community feel are benefits and consequences of over, under taxing, too much, too little wealth.
Yeah, and especially how I think the reason why we wanted to really hone in on the groundedness of both population and wealth is that these are ultimately, let's say, the core blood veins of your realm that then feed into a lot of other systems. And I think that's exciting to think about, let's say, the depth that is generated there. I saw the other day a YouTube video and with a great, that person came up with a great term, vertical depth.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think it was exactly what we're trying to do here, where instead of having a lot of features that sit next to each other in silos, we have some core systems like population, like wealth, that really feed into everything. And it's the cross.
It's all connected, right? It's that
Exactly,
simulation is connected, and that's the benefit. And there's feedback to the war core, the engine, the fact that we have the great opportunity to rebuild all of these campaign systems for Medieval 3 in a way that can be so interconnected. They can be so ingrained in that simulation and just make sense. That's the great opportunity we get from Warcore and the ability for to do that.
And is it fair to say
it's fantastic?
That's
so
kind
great.
of what we've been waiting for Medieval 3. Is
Absolutely,
it's
we've had we've talked about this in blogs, and we've tried this before. We ourselves wanted to make a Medieval 3 worthy of the mantle, right? And we were waiting for the moment we were able to realize this ambition and not just have it be a kind of follow-up or a reskin. We wanted to do something that's really kind of challenges some of those systems and rebuilds them from to really bring this world to life.
I think that's one of the, let's say, major benefits of the new engine is that we almost started with a clean slate.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't about, okay, how can we take the medieval theme and sort of press it into, let's say, our legacy systems, but really, okay, let's start from scratch. How does the economy need to work? How do armies need to work?
And it's not without challenge, right? Because we have to choose our battles, right? Yeah. And this is where, again, prioritizing, during pre-production, what are the key things we have to prioritize? What are the key things we have to get right? And further down the line, we'll be, choosing more and picking more, and as it comes, takes shape, because we can't have it all. So it's all about, where do we prioritize our efforts? And that's part of where the engagement with the community comes in, to kind of have that dialogue and say, okay, what's important to you?
Yes.
If we have to choose between A and B, what would you prefer? Because we,
what do we do first?
Yeah, exactly.
Then,
But that's what I mean is having a kind of honest, and I said adult, but there's a better word for it I can't think of, but like proper, treating each other with respect of, this is what we're intending to do. Which of these is more important to you? And it not being, do both. It's, well, we want to do both, but which is the most important pillar for you to make the world immersive first? And then what would you like to see from the second?
Yeah.
Or the compromise. What's 50-50 of each that you think is the most? So, but those are the conversations that usually we would have in meeting rooms behind closed doors, and we'll still have those meetings, but we want to have the community's opinion and their take to take into battle with those. Okay, we are getting there. I think that is all of our. I moved the map around because I realized they've seen the same bit for a long time, and I realized we're on the questions. They never saw me move it. But yeah, someone asked, is this the final UI? And I did see people in chat starting to correct them. And as I say, there is going to be a period of transition for us in the community.
There is nothing. We need to change. Sorry, we need to change the text to be nothing final.
Yeah, every single. It does say all content subject to change. It means
all content will change.
But yes, this is us trying to make the very core blocks that then we can start to piece together the game. So we make the blocks out of clay. And then when we're happy and we've molded them into a way we like, that's when we start to harden them, and that's when we start to make the game. So we're asking for your help to mold those blocks so that we make the right thing.
There will definitely be a point where we're in the stream and we say, by the way, this is the final art for this particular thing.
The final.
Yeah, so guys, this is very important. If they are not, until this up at the top says anything besides either all content subject to change or anything like that, nothing you see here is the final. So this is just placeholders. What's cool, they even have kind of this kind of block render up and ready for us, but it is more just to show you what their ideas are. It's not to show you what the final game is going to look like. So just keep that in mind.
Final tree.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
No. And no, that was not the final tree. These are not the final trees. Okay.
They do look good now.
You know what? Okay, so I did have a question of what's kind of your future timeline for streams. Part of that as well is if you guys enjoyed this, let us know in the comments.
Yeah, so that's it's, did you like this format? Was it good? In the way, in showing the game and talking about it, I think we will tweak how we do these. We'll definitely tweak the setup. So, but yeah, let us know what you thought. And we want to do more streams.
Someone in the back straight up elbow drops the mic.
We've talked about streaming our other titles as well and talking about them in the context of Medfree.
Yeah, what we take from them.
Yeah, exactly, and taking feedback on let's say doing a stream of let's say 3K and talking about some of the features there and how we'd want to how that relates to what we're doing in Medfree. So we'll definitely be lining stuff up. And as we progress, as the topics flow on the forums, as we're kind of showing more in our blogs, we will line up streams to kind of reinforce those conversations and and show progress, right? When we've made some updates, I've talked about doing a deeper dive on population or tax. We will do a stream and do deeper dives on those bits when we're ready.
I think your hair was on the mic, but I think that they got what you were saying.
Don't compromise quality insurance for savings or your time for this ad. Hit that skip button or.
So we'll definitely be lining stuff up. And as we progress, as the topics flow on the forums, as we're kind of showing more in our blogs, we will line up streams to kind of reinforce those conversations and and show progress, right? When we've made some updates, I've talked about doing a deeper dive on population or tax. We will do a stream and do deeper dives on those bits when we're ready.
I think your hair was on the mic, but I think that they got what you were saying.
I need to stop.
You're gonna have to shave for the next one.
I'm gonna have to shave it all off. Yeah, it's too much.
But yeah,
too much.
and on the question of when will there be future streams, we're still doing blogs. You guys will still be active, as I imagine other devs in the forums. I cannot iterate enough as well. And if you've had thoughts and you want to answer any of those questions, we will look for feedback everywhere, but we will guaranteed be able to read what you've said and find it if you're on the forums, if you're in the spaces we've set up for this discussion. So thank you so much. Do I have anything else that I have to say? I do have a statement. Some people ask how scripted our screens are. They are not. This is all just my notes, and please remember these things. This is the only thing I'm going to read from a piece of paper. Unless there's anything you guys want to say, I will start to close this out.
Just please join us.
All right, so this is just going to be kind of closing thoughts. Beautiful. Love to see these. We're going to try to react to more of these rally points in the future. That way we can kind of get, we all can kind of stay up to date with what is going on in the background and how the developers are kind of, their vision on the development of the different games, especially here for Medieval 3, because I'm very excited for what's coming with Medieval 3. In fact, we need to start as soon as we come back from kind of the wedding vacation and everything. Vacation, yeah, the time off from after when the Lady Wizard and I get married here. Then we'll come on back, and I'm thinking we might just do individual weeks where we dedicate those weeks to streaming different historical titles, which sounds like a lot of fun. Either way, let me know what you all thought. Answer the questions if you would love to in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you all have to think about kind of the development process for Medieval 3. I'd give a read through each one, and we'll respond to the ones that I can here. Thanks all for stopping on by, and I'll see you in the next one.